Hello, welcome back to Imperator Rome Abridged as Kush. Last time I decided to win by picking a faction that would win if I picked them. So we won a few times and captured a whole bunch of territory. Now we have Axum as well as all of the Merorite territories. I then discovered the missions system and essentially sat around building things in my territory and poking about for the better part of an hour. Got to the stage when, though, one of our Axumite provinces is getting pretty low on loyalty. I had managed during that time to integrate Axumite culture, so that will be improving people's happiness and slowing the speed at which they're going to rebel. But we haven't got to the point of stability yet, so as things stand, they will eventually break away from us, but we'll come back to that later. In the meantime, we've got some barbarians to fight with Punt's garrison, and for our main garrison, our main levy, I'm going to raise them not to deal with that tiny barbarian force, but to walk over to our eastern border, because down those passageways there's another faction and I've already got the casus belli against them. I also discovered the traditions system. Didn't really need to look at this in the past, but now that we're actually gaining military experience, another stat, we can spend it on stuff. Our main techs focus on desert warfare and making our camels better. I presume the camels are amongst the troops. I don't think you can affect the composition of your armies that much, so I haven't been paying too much attention to that, as with most things. But maybe something good is happening in the background, as usual. Now, when it comes to this loyalty issue, one thing I discovered I could do is change the governor policy. I didn't realize, but if you click on the governor policy, you can actually change it to something else. So normally the AI would pick what your governors are doing with the provinces. We can spend some resources to override that. I'm going to pick one that makes the locals happier in the hopes of that improving loyalty, and we are gaining a tiny bit of loyalty right now. This could stabilize the province, but things are going to get worse for other reasons, as we'll see. At least our military efforts are going to be successful, pretty much guaranteed. Here we are, defeating the smaller number of this neighbouring faction. And that's that. Now we go through the process of occupying their stuff, and we take their territory. This levels us up, so to speak, because now we have over 100 territories. We move from being a regional power to a major power, which does that list of things you see on the screen. The most notable changes are probably the bad ones, where our threshold for civil war is down. That means that a smaller amount of our people need to be disloyal for a civil war to start, and it also reduced the loyalty of all of our officers. You can see where they're going with this. They want you, as you get bigger, to fracture apart, essentially. We'll see if that happens. Had to take down some more barbarians on the way back from our campaign in the east, but after that, things are going to be peaceful once again. With this new territory we've taken over there, they are a different culture to the rest of the Axumites, so we've got more stuff in the culture menu to do. We can sacrifice tons of stability to get these guys into our integrated culture as well, although I think I held off on actually integrating them because I didn't want to reduce the happiness of the existing integrated cultures. I think that's how it works. So I just gave them some rights like not getting killed, stuff like that. Maybe they'll like it. Here, well, we're in Google now. It's time to finally find out what bad research ratio means. It actually means something much less complicated than it seems, as somebody here on Reddit was explaining. Essentially, I need to build some libraries, that's all it's really saying, so I'll do that. Having some issues with the governor of Punt, because he's super corrupt, and that, as it turned out, was causing the loyalty of his province to drop even faster, and his corruption was just going up and up. So I did some sort of sanctions against him. This causes him to stop being corrupt, but to instead be extremely disloyal. That's inconvenient because now we can't use the troops from that area because the governor is also the leader of the troops. Well, we don't necessarily need them, but this will come back to haunt me at various points later on, I assure you. Here's another discovery. While going through the missions, one objective was to build a city somewhere, and I was like, how do you build a city? And I eventually discovered there's this hidden menu in the province menu where you can build things in all of the regions. You can put cities all over the place if you've got loads of money to do it. And I really liked that feature. I was like, that's pretty good. The one thing it needs is for the regions on the map that have cities in them to be much more clearly marked, because from above they all kind of look the same, but the regions are certainly not equal. Some of them are way more important than others. I used to think the little column markers on the map meant there was a city. I think that means there's a temple, so it's a little bit different. Sometimes that's in the city, but some more UI there would still be appreciated. It's time to scope out our next target, and I'm looking over at the Arabian blobs because they're all smaller than me, but they have allies together. This is a good move from them. This will allow them to pool their strength, and because of the game's 2000 logic, many small factions are much stronger than one faction of the same size. So that's something working in their favour, but if they don't have enough number, it doesn't matter, and it turns out they don't have enough number, so here we are, killing all of them anyway. Aided vastly by the fact that we could prepare for the war, we could put our troops on the border and just attack right away, whereas their troops will all appear in different places as the war starts, and we'll effectively fight them all one by one at different locations, rather than being able to put all of their stuff together. I don't think the AI would even be able to cope with putting all of its troops together to contest us. Looks like I was trying to do some backstabbing politics, quite literally there, trying to get somebody killed. I don't remember what that was, but you can try and get disloyal people killed to make your place, your faction, less likely to fall into civil war, things like that. But in general it seems to be quite difficult and expensive to do so. I didn't do too much of all that. What we did do is play whack-a-mole, the classic paradox experience for me. You're always much stronger than the enemy, but they can have lots of small groups that will go around and recapture places you're trying to occupy, which is inconvenient. Although in this game, you're helped out by a feature that is becoming clear in this war. Once you take forts, places near the fort will automatically become occupied by you. So you can save some time and effort by just walking straight through their lands and taking all of the forts, and other stuff will just then be painted for you. All pretty good and satisfying, that's the sort of stuff we like to see. Even threw in a cheeky naval invasion for this war, because once the enemy are distracted fighting my main push, there's probably less stuff at the back, so cheekily landing troops there, well, not necessary, but it's fun to do, just to make the war go ever so slightly better, not that it needed to. We ended up with a difficult ending situation though, because a rebellion had occurred within the enemy's territory. We're now at war with that rebellion as well. And we get this situation where we've almost won the main war, and we've completely won the war against the rebels, but I can't take the bit of territory the rebels own, because their territory isn't connected to mine. You have to have a continuous connection to be allowed to claim territory in a peace treaty. I don't know why that's a rule, doesn't seem necessary, but in this case it means I can't end that war until I've ended the first one, but I also can't end the first one for some reason. I think it's because the rebels are controlling parts of the territory that I need to end the first war. Well, something happened. Eventually, it was all sorted out. Now we're going to do some aggressive expansion indeed. By just claiming absolutely everything that's on the table, we gain loads of territory here. Although our aggressive expansion score will now be shooting up. I seem to vaguely remember there's a tooltip that says you get serious penalties once it goes over 30, so maybe that's a target to keep it under. Well, we've reached 60. This essentially means that everybody's going to hate us, but more importantly it just reduces your stability, and then stability reduces loads of other things like happiness, which will make your provinces rebel. I think it decreases the threshold for loyalty at which somebody will consider joining a civil war. So if you're unstable, you're more likely to have generals turn against you and things like that. It's all bad, and that instability will now gradually come towards us as our baseline stability is set very low by aggressive expansion. It takes some time to get there, but we'll have civil war soon enough. Had to fight some barbarians to hold on to this territory, but now we are good to go. The loyalty starts at 100, so they're all pretty loyal, but they're going to be dropping continuously due to low happiness, culture stuff, and all of the various debuffs in the background that are hard to completely calculate altogether. I did complete the mission to upgrade our territory. It finishes with the creation of a vassal inside our lands, a holy area where there are loads of temples. That's handy because that vassal will have its own stack of 2,000 troops, which a single region otherwise wouldn't be able to give you. I went on to do another mission. This one though seems to be one you are supposed to do right at the start. It's based around your initial expansion opportunities as Kush. Well, we've already done it all, so we can kind of just work our way through that mission tree without anything in particular happening, which I'll do. I'm also planning my next move. There are various tiny factions right on the edge of the map that we might as well claim to finish our borders and have the edge of the map be the edge of our territory. However, as you can see in the top left, civil war is on the way and that situation's only going to get worse. Our mission proved easy enough to finish because we'd already done most of the stuff we needed to do. It was essentially capture things, so we can just pick up some free passive buffs and complete the mission. And that is important because you can't leave a mission once you start it, as it turns out, without taking a stability hit. So we got out of that, allowing us to do something else that might be a bit more productive. I'm going to go with this one, Stabilize and Grow Punt. This is just another building mission. We're going to make some stuff in the general area of Axum and get some free stuff as a reward for doing so. Plus it just gives me ideas for what to build overall. Regarding the Civil War, we put it off for a while by using the text adventure. We had a few chances like this one here. This was a particularly good one, where I could actually kick somebody out of power, the governor of Axum. That reduces his power base stat, and it's a combination of the power base stat and their disloyalty that contributes to how much of a civil war you're going to have. So I think there were 2 waves where I actually got rid of the civil war entirely, but it kept coming back, and we're going to skip to the action here. Yes, we did end up having a nice big civil war. Axum completely revolted against us and took tons of territory and its neighbours with it. So we've got this green blemish to deal with. The good news is that most of our troops come from our capital region. That means they're not going to have as much number as us, most likely anyway. Therefore all we have to do is walk in and take the territory back. That's really just going to be a matter of time, that push from the west. But we're also going to have a bit of a conflict in the east. I decided to raise the levies at Arabia. I was thinking of just defending here in case the enemy came over here, and indeed they did. They sent a load of troops over to start taking our territory. Because it's a civil war, any territory they occupy they get permanently, so there's no occupation and peace deal thing going on. It's just take what you can get. Seeing the enemy here, I realised I could just buy this mercenary army that happened to be standing right next to them and send them in to take the enemy out. However, that's not how this works actually. Mercenaries have no morale, and you have to wait for them to get morale before you can use them. Not appreciating that at all. I just sent them in with no morale, apparently not checking either, and they actually did very poorly in this battle. Some of my own troops are in there as well. And there you go, we actually lost the opening engagement of this civil war. Quite embarrassing, although it doesn't matter that much, because no matter what happens over there, these stacks are just going to sweep through and kill absolutely everything eventually. I suppose it's better to finish the war sooner rather than later, otherwise you get more war exhaustion, which is another number that reduces your other numbers in various ways if it goes up too much. Well, the mercenaries eventually got their morale back, so we also won the fights over there in the east. And then everybody pushed all over the place and eventually took all of the green colour, turned it back to victorious purple, and that's that. We have a choice for what to do with all of the captured people from the Civil War. We can kill only the ringleaders and spare the regular troops, or we can kill everybody, and you get 2 sets of quite similar but slightly different buffs and debuffs if you go for each. In the end I went for the sparing option, because I'm nice and because specifically it gives you some of your manpower back, making it easier for us to go to war with someone else soon, which is probably something we'll want to do. It's kind of the cycle in the game, you can sense it. They want you to take territory, fall apart due to civil war, and then win the civil war. By the time you've done that, all of the debuffs from taking the territory go away. Winning the civil war gives you loads of stability and loyalty buffs. So then you're ready to go and take something else, that ruins everything, your empire falls apart again, and you end up sort of cycling up towards a bigger empire with constant breakdowns along the way, and that's life. We also, annoyingly, failed the stabilize punt mission because we lost it. I can start it again, but I have to go right back to the beginning, and it seems that for whatever reason, while this territory was under AI control, they actually destroyed some of the buildings that I needed to progress the mission. Therefore I had to rebuild them again. Inconvenient, but that's something to do in the background, I suppose. That's the end of this part, because this part's footage was about 4 hours long. I totally don't have time to be playing this game. There's too much looking at numbers going up and down that I don't really feel like commentating on. But that's what I'll be doing from here. We need to get some numbers down, get that aggressive expansion to go away. Then I will conquer the blobs near me and the rest of Arabia, things like that, to make it go back up. Then maybe things will fall apart again. My eventual goal is to get really big by taking on all of the small blobs around me, and then go for a big blob, and that's almost certainly going to be Egypt up top. I don't know if we can get big enough to really challenge them, but we're going to try and do it anyway, so join me for more of that in part 3.